So in this episode of the podcast, I want to talk about some other ways that you could be monetizing your music right now. And when I say monetizing your music, I mean your works of someone else. We call those cover songs. And right now, there are a lot of people making a living actually doing cover songs on YouTube. They've been doing it for a long time. And a lot of times I'll get asked the question, well, Rick, how do I monetize a cover? Well, the good news for you is we're talking with Larry Mills today from We Are the Hits. Now, they were the first company to actually create this license for you. They didn't create the mechanical license, but they created the license for you to get paid on YouTube. Larry, I appreciate you being here, and tell everyone a little bit about you, a little bit about We Are the Hits, and then let's talk about ways that artists can start making money, especially since the whole world's sitting at home on a phone and a computer right now.
That's right. So, well, thanks for having me, Rick. I appreciate it. So my background is I've always worked with independent artists. I've run my own independent record label. I've worked for an independent production library called Pump Audio. And for a short period of time, I was the VP of kind of strategic marketing and business development at Sony ATV. When I was at Sony, we identified, it was kind of the beginning of this YouTube explosion. This is pre all MCNs and all the stuff that people are more familiar with now. And there were a lot of people that were doing cover songs and would call Sony and say, hey, I'm doing a cover of One Republic or Taylor Swift or the Beatles. Can I get a license to be able to do this? Unfortunately, when you call these sync departments, not unfortunate for the sync department, but unfortunate for these users is, when the phone rings at a sync department, for better or for worse, they're not giving something to you for $2, right? So these people would call and they would still get a good deal. Hey, it's going to cost you $500 or $1,000, which for people that know the sync world for digital video is still a fair deal. But these users are like, wait a minute, I'm just singing covers in my basement. I don't have $500 and I'm not necessarily making any money from YouTube because I don't have a partnership with them. I don't have a deal with them. So we came up with this idea where instead of them getting a license from Sony at the time, the idea is that they would be granting us a license. So, I always say there's multiple assets, right? So you have a song and you have a sound recording. We'll get into how those work with covers.
Right, and we should also maybe talk about what these licenses are and the various licenses. I always try to not assume that everyone understands this.
I'm all about page one, Rick. So.
Yeah, and publishing is probably one of the most confusing topics, but that's where the money is.
Look, what's funny when I got into publishing, I would talk to my friends that worked at record labels, and they would all say the same thing to me, which is, I don't know much about publishing, but they seem to make all the money, and I'd be like, well, maybe you should learn about publishing then, right? If that's where all the money is.
Department, yeah.
That's right. So it basically works like this, right? I always say there's two sides, right? There's people that write songs and people that record songs. So you've got, I use older examples, but you had, Prince write Nothing Compares to You and Sinead O'Connor sings it. Yep. So Prince is the writer, Sinead O'Connor is the singer, all along the Watchtower, Dylan and Hendrix, right? Or now there's all these famous songwriters that write songs for, pop stars. So there's always one song and then there's multiple sound recordings, right? So Lennon and McCartney write Let It Be, but it's been recorded by everybody, right? From Celine Dion to you, to me, to the Beatles, to, Maroon 5 and everybody in between. So whenever you're dealing with music, you have to make sure that you have both sides or both of those participants kind of their approval. Some of those approvals are government mandated, right? So you can play anything on the radio as long as you are paying your ASCAP and BMI and CSAC money. You can, put something onto a streaming service, and as long as those same kind of streaming fees, I don't want to get into the Music Modernization Act. That's
right. That'll take care of itself here.
Right, but basically you need to have the authorization of those people. Some of those rates, like mechanicals, if you want to make a download or stream it, our rates are set by the government. Unfortunately or unfortunately, sites like YouTube, although I always say people think YouTube is the rules of God, right? They are still a corporation that makes rules. They are sync, right? There's an audio visual component. So what happens is that if you are going to marry music and picture, you need what's called a synchronization license. That is not mandated. There is not a set rate like a mechanical rate or a public performance rate. So that is negotiated between the parties. Same way you would have to negotiate to put your song in a Avengers movie, or you would have to negotiate to put a song in a TV show or a television commercial. So when people are getting paid on YouTube, that is not a government set rate, right? Or some negotiated rate with a government body. That has been negotiated by Google, right, who owns YouTube, and the music rights holders. And so those rates and advertising that gets paid out and what those percentages are, those are negotiated between those parties. So that's kind of the basis for this conversation, right? So when we were at We Are the Hits, when we started it at Sony, the idea was, hey, I'm covering Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen. How do I make some money from it? And so what usually happens is that someone says, I want to use Hallelujah in an advertisement or whatever it might be. So I'm going to go to Sony and I'm going to give them some money. And then I get to use it. And whatever that deal is, I give them $10,000 and I go get to make a video promoting my car dealership, right? In this case, what was happening was the amount of upfront money that YouTubers and content creators had to pay was, in their mind, exorbitant.
Sure.
And even though those rates are very low for anyone who's dealt with licensing music for digital media, it still is more than the kid who's going to get 20,000 views or 1 million views, not knowing how much money it's worth. So we kind of flipped the switch and said, well, why don't we do it this way, which is, instead of you acquiring a license from us, you in essence are going to grant us rights. So the way We Are the Hits works is user X, I always seem to use the name Fred for some reason, but let's say Fred makes a cover of Let It Be. So he's basically created 3 things, or there's 3 things in his creation. There is the song, which is controlled by Lennon and McCartney or their music publisher. There is the sound recording. They played an instrument and sang and created an audio, and then they recorded it, so there's a video. So there's 3 things in play. That user, Fred, has rights to the video because they are the ones that filmed it. They have the right to the sound recording because they are the ones that recorded it. What they don't have, unfortunately, is the song, which is at the root of what they've created. So when you are someone who is kind of acquiring rights, like We Are the Hits was, what we did is said, okay, we have the rights from the Sony ATV collection. So we can put that on one side, so we have the song part. Now we need to get these other rights, the video and the song. So we'll acquire those too. So what happens basically is these users, in essence, grant We Are the Hits a license. So now we have a full cleared asset. We have these publishing rights, we have these sound recording rights, we have these music video rights. We now have created all the rights we need to make a claim. We can get into what that means on YouTube in a second.
Yep.
We can now claim that entire asset. Advertising runs, $1 comes in, and we pay everybody the agreed to rates. So we give Lennon and McCartney some, and we give Fred some.
Yep. So everybody who needs to be paid,
correct,
gets paid.
That's right. And so
things don't get yanked down, and things don't get blocked, and things don't.
Generally, I would say there's a 99%, right? Like, you know,
Still happens.
Right. Look, Don Henley, for example, does not like people covering his music. He just doesn't like it, right? Prince didn't like it. Right. So there may be certain artists that say, no, you can't do that, and I'm going to take it down, right? And in our system, those songs are blocked, but there's always the chance that, you know, someone puts up a video that Taylor Swift doesn't like, right? She's a big cat person, and there was a video one time that put up by a guy who was using her song, and there was a video and he was being mean to a cat, and she said, I don't want that video up there. That's not what I believe in.
Even if someone goes and gets a license and they're granted that license, and then they do a video that the artist doesn't like,
correct,
the artist can then go back and get that down as well.
That's right. Because we're not in a position, or, you know, YouTube, and this is a YouTube issue, not necessarily a We Are the Hits issue or any other company, right? Like, you don't ask someone, are you making a video where you're mean to cats? Right. But if you are, let's say, you're in the mean to cats business, and you call Sony ATV and say, hi, I'm running meantocats.com, and I'd like to use a Taylor Swift song, they would have the opportunity to say no. So when you have this kind of open door for people to put content up, you also have the rights. You know, Taylor Swift's not going to give YouTube the rights unless she has the ability to take down content that she thinks is offensive or
her brand,
right? And we've seen artists do this across, you know, for example, Madonna doesn't like people, if she's going to tour, she doesn't want people performing her music. So let's say there's a Madonna, I don't know, symphonic Madonna concert going on out there. She will not allow that to happen when she's going to be on tour. So that's more of a time-based thing than it is a content-based, but it's always their right to take those things down.
So let's talk about claims here for a second. Yep. I get this a lot. My clients will come back and say, Rick, I put my video up on YouTube and now all of a sudden a claim's been marked that I don't own my song or own my publishing. And what I always tell them is you should probably go to your distributor, because they're the ones usually putting up the claim if they're collecting your publishing. This is for original material right now. I know you guys cover songs, but I also know that you worked in that world for a while. What suggestions would you give to someone that says my original song just got claimed and I can't unblock my channel? What advice would you give them?
Right. So let's take one step back. I mean, I just want to finish the We Are the Hit story really quickly, right? Because I think this is an important piece. And then I'll get to that and my favorite analogy, which I haven't copywritten it yet, but I'm working on it.
It's getting there.
It's getting there. It's been honed over the years. So, so one of the things that's important about publishing is the Beatles, Lennon and McCartney are generally, their songs are together and their publishing is together. What happens with a lot of pop songs is, you have multiple writers. So, for example, a Bruno Mars song might have 6 writers on it, or Drake, or Jay-Z.
Counted one earlier that had 13.
That's right. Right.
Right in your library. I went just looking. I'm like,
right. Right. We're not. We won't talk about the Beastie Boys. So, one of the big issues that we have with We Are the Hits, which is also important so people will understand the claiming part, is you have to get all those people together. So it's easy to go, not easy, but it's easier to go get the rights to a song that was written by one person. So historically speaking, 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s, the most popular band, Bruce Springsteen wrote all his own music, right? Madonna maybe had some writers, but there were bands, right? So the Who wrote all their own music, the Beatles wrote their music, Rolling Stones wrote their music, Tom Petty, etc. As we moved into more current pop, you start having a ton of songwriters on things. You got a top liner, you got someone who is good at this, and they're a lyric person, right? So you now have multiple songwriters. So let's say the 5 of us write a song together. I'm with Sony, you're with Universal, someone's with Concord, this person's independent. Now it's international. So internationally, Concord works with Cobalt, right? So it's very complicated to get all those pieces together. So when we were the Hits, obviously we were Sony only because we started there. So I acquired it from Sony and got it out of Sony so we could sign up all the other publishers to have full coverage of songs. That is the most complicated part, I think. If this was back in the 70s and 80s, and the bands were what they were, if you wanted to cover Tom Petty, you just had to call Tom Petty, right? You had to talk to one publisher. Now you want to cover, even Taylor Swift used to write all her own songs, and that's not the case anymore, right? So that's the complicated part of publishing is you can think you can have it and you can have 75% of it covered, but then this one writer has a kind of a screw you attitude, or goes on vacation, or is an independent, or doesn't care, right? Or more often, it's the one song they own 25% of. So it's very valuable to them. So for example, Liz Rose, who writes a bunch of Taylor Swift stuff, she's not as rich and famous as Taylor Swift is, right? So if Taylor Swift may want someone to use her music and she may say, great, you can use it. Liz Rose may be like, wait a minute, I don't have a tour where I make $100 million. So if you want to use the song I wrote 25% of, I'm sorry, you got to pay me more money because this is the only song that makes me money, right? So there's always competing forces in publishing, which is different than the record company, which owns an asset completely. So it's very important for everyone to understand that it's complicated to begin with, but then there's also a kind of a level of difficulty based on song type, right? So if you go to a publisher, a lot of times they'll be like, you think you want this song, but if you use the 1975, we control that 100%, so do that, right? So sometimes you'll see that ownership piece adds a level to this.
You see that a lot in film and television when they'll go and they'll get, they'll go to artists, really good artists, and say, hey, why don't you guys cover these like 10 songs in your own cool style, because we've already got the publishing cleared, but the person over here doesn't want to let the master recording go, and we don't want to pay the Rolling Stones $1 million. We'd rather pay you $25,000. You hear that a lot. So
That's right.
when you go to wearethehits.com and you go into choosing your song, those songs have already been cleared
through
by
our deal
everyone
with the
in there. So
publisher.
you're never going to have to sit there and go, well, we still need to go get Billy Bob over here who's on vacation. Okay, so everything is cleared, and you guys have quite an extensive library right now.
Yeah, we have all the major publishers. We have, you know, we have the majority of the stuff out there. So now back to your claiming question.
Yeah, because the claims are coming.
The claims are coming.
Yeah, and this, let me just switch this up real quick. He explained how someone with multiple people could go in and claim. Right now, we're getting a lot of where your original music is being claimed, and you're confused because you're like, I did a cover, I did a song, one of my own songs, put it up on YouTube, and YouTube said, you don't own this. I always tell people go back to their distributor, because for a lot of independent artists, your distributor's also acting as your publisher to collect money. Now I toss this back into Larry's because he is in the publishing world.
That's right. So
by giving them good advice to go to their distributor first.
Yeah,
that's
100%. Right? Like, so let me go to my not yet copyrighted. I can never
I'm going to copyright it today. Go ahead.
Okay.
And be very clear.
I would say YouTube, when it comes to music, is a foot inside a sock inside a shoe. And what I mean by that is the foot is the song. That's the composition asset. Okay. Around that foot is the sock, right? That sock is the sound recording. And then those two things fit into a shoe, and that shoe is what's called a music video. So whenever you're thinking about music-specific claims on YouTube, there are other types of claims, but let's keep this specific to music. It's a foot inside a sock inside a shoe. And the people that make claims either represent feet, they represent socks, or they represent shoes. So let's start with the foot. Okay, so the foot is the song. So those are music publishers who control that. And that music publisher can be a major music publisher, you know, Sony, Universal, Warner, etc. It can be an independent music publisher. It can be your distributor that you have granted those rights to make that claim for you. Okay, so if you're an individual writer, Fred, let's go back to Fred, the famous Fred. Fred writes a song called I Gotta Wear Glasses. Okay, Fred writes this song, he records it, and he uses CD Baby, TuneCore, etc., to distribute that. My hunch is, though I've not looked at their agreements in a while, my hunch is you're granting that distributor the rights for your sound recording, and potentially if you sign up for them to represent your publishing, right? So maybe it's you, or you go through Song Trust, right? There are multiple people who deal with the publishing around independent artists. But let's for a second, to make it easier, assume that it's all in one place.
Yeah.
So you use CD Baby for your uploading, and they use Song Trust to represent your publishing. So let's just say it's CD Baby. Now you have created the sound recording that they get to distribute. They give it to Spotify, they give it to Pandora, they give it to Tidal, they give it to Apple, et cetera, et cetera. They are also now going to represent that sound recording and potentially the publishing on these other platforms. We'll get to Facebook in a second. Let's just keep it specific to YouTube. So now they're going to represent it on YouTube. So now you are going to upload a video of that. Now, maybe you've granted those rights to CD Baby. Let's say you have not. Let's say you just specifically have granted them audio rights. You now have the Fred YouTube channel, and which I believe there was an early YouTuber named Fred, really popular. Him and the Angry Orange, right, or something like that. Yeah, I think there was. So maybe that's why Fred's in my head as my my YouTuber. Anyhow, so now you have CD Baby that's out there representing your sound recording out in the world, right? So they're making sure that it's on Spotify, and if you get 1 million spins, you get paid, and it's making sure that when it's on Pandora or Tidal or all this stuff that you're getting paid. But it's also now looking on YouTube to see if it's being used. So what will happen is Fred will make a video, and it's him in his backyard, and and he's made a video, playing his song, and he uploads it to his channel, which he has control of. Let's put aside that channel may be with a YouTube network, right? That adds another layer of complexity. But let's just say for a minute that he's an independent, and he's big enough to get paid directly by YouTube, because you got to be this tall kind of thing with YouTube now, a certain number of viewers and all that stuff to be able to get paid. Okay. So now what's going to happen is Fred's going to go, that's my asset. I made this video. It's my song and it's my publishing. And he uploads the video and it gets him views. Now what will happen is the YouTube system will hear that song. Okay. It'll hear the song I Wear Glasses, And CD Baby, who is now representing that sound recording, like I said, maybe the publishing, maybe not, but let's just stick with the sound recording, which is basically they're in the sock business, right?
Right.
Fred has uploaded a shoe, which has his sock and his foot in it, right? But now CD Baby, because it has this automatic Shazam type of content ID happening in YouTube, CD Baby may not be actively pushing a button to say that's it, but the YouTube system is going to make that claim. So what in essence is happening is Fred has granted CD Baby these rights. Fred has uploaded a video, and then the YouTube system is making that claim. So you're right. What usually is happening is everything's happening as it should. And what Fred in this instance should think about is, okay, I'm going to get that money, right? Hopefully if the system works correctly.
Sure.
Right? And advertising comes and a dollar will go to CD Baby. CD Baby takes her cut. Let's just say it's 20%. CD Baby takes her 20%, and then Fred will get 80 cents. It can be a little, I think people, and this happens all the time with We Are the Hits artists. Oh my God, a claim. And there's a difference between a claim and a copyright strike, right? A copyright claim is the way the system is supposed to work. A strike is when you've done something wrong. So people just get a notification. It's almost like you get a letter from the IRS and you freak out and the IRS says, we've just changed you. We've updated your address. And you're like, oh, okay. Right. But when you're opening the letter, you freak out. And that's just like, we're just letting you know that we know that you've moved down the street. Right. And so you get a little freaked out. Oh my God, I got a letter from the IRS or whatever it might be. Or it's like when you get a call from, the credit card company on fraud alert, right? All of a sudden your credit card company calls you and you freak out, but it's working as it should, right? So that's what's happening. So you're right. What they should do is talk to their distributor to either say, hey, I didn't grant you those rights, right? Or can you confirm that on my statement, I'm going to see this 80 cents that comes through?
Got it. And now let's end with, when will Facebook catch up? I don't know any other better question to ask.
Right. So let me
catch up.
So let me just give a little history of YouTube before we talk about Facebook, because I think that, I think what you're seeing is kind of a replication of what happened with YouTube. And I think it's important that people understand the history so they can be aware of that it's not taking Facebook as long as people think. And what I believe will happen in the future. So YouTube was this place that had a bunch of people uploading videos, right? And there was copyright infringement all over the place, but it became super popular. So two companies, Fox and Google, came in to buy it. And I think everyone should be thankful that it was Google. And the reason Google was the right one to buy it was Google already had this ability for Google ads, right? So you used to have a website and you would sell coffee mugs that, had pictures of whatever animals on them. And you had a website or a blog or, whatever it was. And then you could put Google ads on your page. And if you got a bunch of visits and Google ads were there, you could get a check from them. So when you signed up with Google AdSense, you put in your bank account information, you put in this stuff, and then ultimately if you got 1 million visitors, next thing you know, you're getting a check in the mail because you allowed there to be ads for whatever, right? Walmart to be on your website and you got paid. So you had created the relationship between you, a user, Google, and a money transaction, okay? No one else had that. Yahoo didn't have that. Fox didn't have that. Or News Corp, right? And Facebook doesn't have that, right? So you don't get paid from Facebook right now. So what happened was YouTube went around to all the rights holders. This wasn't just music rights holders. These are films and name and likeness companies, right? Pictures of George Clooney, Wire Image for pictures of the Oscars, all the TV shows. So if you put up clips of Seinfeld and said to everybody, like, here's a bunch of money, because we got to figure out this one-to-one relationship. So when there's advertising on Fred's video, Fred can get paid. And if Fred is singing Let It Be, Lennon and McCartney can get paid. And it took him about 3 years. I was at Sony at the time a lot of these negotiations were happening. And it took him about 3 years. And Google said, look, here's a bunch of money. You figure out how to pay everybody. And so what most of these rights holder companies did was say, we're going to assume that what's getting played on YouTube is similar to what's getting played on K-Rock or what's getting played on radio stations. So if Taylor Swift is 10% of our payout and we got $1 million from YouTube, we're going to assume that 100,000 of that is for Taylor Swift, okay? There was a lot of argument over that, the best way to do it. Is that fair? Yeah, but like, I don't know how else you do it, right? And I wasn't part of that conversation over how people got paid, so don't hold that on me. But I think that was the general idea was, well, we're going to pay this out pro rata based on some formula, right? And did some people make more than they should? Sure. Did some people make less than they should? Sure. That's the kind of the nature of it at the time. But then ultimately what they created was Content ID. And what Content ID did was it allowed on an asset by asset basis for things to get claimed. So then you knew specifically that Fred's video had the following things in it: a Seinfeld clip, a picture of Julia Roberts, and, you know, a song by Lennon and McCartney. And then money would come in, and then those rights holders, based on the type of claim and the negotiation that happened, got paid this money, okay? But that took a long time to create, okay? Now, what YouTube had when their benefit was, it was very easy. I click play on this video or this playlist, and an ad runs. It's very easy to say there was an ad for Pepsi on Fred's video. Okay, so that's how YouTube did it, and it took them 3 years or more, and then their Shazam type matching had to be better, right? So it used to be when you would look under the hood of YouTube at, you know, 20% of the videos had claims on them. Now 85% or more. I don't know the exact numbers, but a lot have claims. So it's doing better to actually create a one-to-one scenario of actual song or piece of content being used and getting paid. So Facebook's got
paid, right?
That's right. So Facebook has a little different issue, right? Number one, there's the scrolling, which is a little different. So yes, you could potentially have a video ad. So if I'm scrolling through and I stop and I'm watching Fred's video, that's one thing. But you also have ads on the side. So how do you know when I'm scrolling that I stopped on Fred's video or my post that it's my kid's birthday or, you know, whatever. So they may have, and maybe their algorithm is able to test that, but so they have that issue, right, of a direct one-to-one relationship between advertiser and viewership. And they currently don't have a way for Fred to get paid, right? Because Fred has not set up a specific account with their banking details. They don't have AdSense to do it. So where Facebook is going is they are going to have a similar Content ID system. That's why they hired everybody who built it.
And YouTube went to Facebook.
That's right. I'd like to see the stock portfolio of all those people, but that's a different different story. But so they have built a similar, what I like to call basically it's a yes, no, maybe so system, right? Yes, you can monetize my content, a la Taylor Swift. No, you can't, a la Don Henley. Or the maybe so, which is, I don't know yet, which is basically the track functionality on YouTube. So it's yes, no, maybe so will come to Facebook soon. I would think, it's obviously coming soon because now major labels are able to put their videos up there.
Well, right? And I think one of the biggest complaints that artists have is that, you know, they would like to go do Facebook Lives and they would like to upload their video and be paid a streaming royalty like they are everywhere else. So, and then I think too is that like TikTok, hell, you could just go put anything up on TikTok. Nobody's making any money on it. It's just, they've just kind of come to live with it.
They're coming too. Right, yeah. But they're coming too. And so all of these companies, Triller, TikTok, Pinterest, right? Every social media company that has visual and audio on it, right, is going to come up with this system. The issues going to be, I think, are three things: direct attribution, Fred's video, Fred's money, right? And advertisers want that direct attribution too. Look, I mean, I grew up in Chicago and I live in New York. When I want to listen to Chicago sports radio to get aggravated by the Cubs, you know, I turn on my radio app and I get ads for Chicago things. That's wrong. I don't live there. I shouldn't get ads for Chicago things. I should get ads for New York things because that's where I live, right?
You should lock in to figure out where you are.
Correct. So they haven't done a good job of that, of targeting the advertising to me. Okay. So advertisers don't like that. They don't want their, you know, flood recovery business in, you know, Arlington Heights, Illinois to be sent to me. I live in Manhattan, right? So advertisers would rather pay for very specific, I need, you know, guys that I keep talking about, just got glasses. I'm Warby Parker. I want to advertise to Larry Mills in Manhattan and tell him that there's a Showcase store on, you know, West 4th Street, right? So that is part of the direct attribution piece that they're going to want to have, right? That everyone wants. So that's step one that these companies need to do. Number two is they got to figure out this monetization piece one to another, right? Where not only can you attribute that to me or Fred, but then me or Fred can get paid. What the labels do with this new kind of major label content, and we can get into what Vivo is in a minute. So Vivo, they're in the shoe business, right? So Vivo's gone to record companies to get the socks. They've gone to publishers to get the feet. They've created music videos, and that's the business they're in. So what they can do is they can do a large deal and say, okay, you want my major label content. It's very specific. Everyone knows it's high value, right? Maybe Fred's cover is good or bad, but the Taylor Swift folklore video is of high value, and and Facebook will pay for that as part of their deal with those publishers or with Vivo. So that's why, and that's what YouTube did the same thing. That's why Vivo was first, right? Because it was a specific set of a finite amount of content of high value that they could pay for, right? They didn't have to worry about Fred yet, right? I'm gonna deal with Taylor Swift first, I'll deal with Fred later. So that's what Facebook's doing, which is, I think, a very good sign, because Facebook doesn't want to just pay these people millions of dollars and not know how much money they're making. It can't just be a cost of, they would rather have it be a cost of goods sold. They'd rather it be 40% or 50% or 60% of something versus a flat number that may turn out to be 90% of something, right? Or how it was early, 110% of something, right? So they want to get to a point where they can have direct attribution, so they can build their business knowing dollar comes in, I pay rights holders 50, I keep 50. They're not there yet, but I think everyone should be encouraged that the official music videos have started, which shows that they are well on their way of attribution, which ultimately will lead to individual users being able to do it too.
Well, and I also think too, when you saw that when you watched a video and started to scroll, that your video went and stayed in the top right, that Facebook realized that, okay, people want to hear music, they want to watch videos, but we still need them to stay here and scroll and hopefully see that sponsored ad about the UGG boots that they looked at earlier and still buy. So they're going to extend your reach by posting native, organic, original content. It's just going to help you out. WeAreTheHits.com. If you need to go get a license so that you and everyone can get paid, go check them out. They've also got a great section in there. You can just go search their library. I also like to break it down by charts, where you can go in and say, okay, what are the hot songs right now? If you are on YouTube and you're wanting to know what people are going to be searching for, go check out the hot charts. Get ahead of the game. Go ahead, grab yourself a license, get that video up. I know that's what, the Tyler Wards in the day and all of them were doing, is they would go to the charts and they would say, okay, these 10 songs, people are going to be searching them. Right. Let me go ahead, grab a license, know that you can get paid. That's the big thing. And check it out once again, WeAreTheHits.com. Larry, I appreciate you. Glad that I was able to be one of the first people to get video of you with your new glasses.
I know. Well, they're only reading, so I call it my Chuck Schumer, right? I do it like this.
53. I tell people I can see a blonde hair on a donkey or a camel from across the room, but I can't read my phone right in front of my face. I don't know.
I'll tell one quick glasses story. So I have young kids and they go to school, and then the principal at the school recommends books for the parents to read to know where he's coming from with education. So he has this one book about, when it's important in young childhood education, all these really important things. So it's kind of a school book club. And so my wife reads the book and she goes, oh my God, you got to read this. It's great. And so I pick it up. I go, I can't read this. She goes, it's not scary. Like, you can read it. I'm like, no, I can't read it. She's like, it's not offensive. You're going to be fine. I'm like, oh man, maybe I need glasses. And then also I'm like, wow, it's so much easier to read.
That is crazy. Well, listen, stay safe. I appreciate you again. Once again, WeAreTheHits.com. You can find their links below this video. If you are watching on YouTube, that's where you will find them. If you are listening on the podcast, it's easy. WeAreTheHits.com.
All right. Thanks, Rick.